So this is into day 4, Monday. Status report. I had been skiing for decades. Was pretty darn good for a central New Jersey boy. A week this year, a week that year, 2 weeks, another year, nothing, another year. Was described in the mid-90s by someone who was born and raised in the Rockies that I was the greatest skier they'd ever seen. Actually, that year with that individual, I was restructuring a company out in Salt Lake City. Was going to be co-president. It was very successful. Was the best year I'd ever skied. So all those decades, everything clicked together. I'd been very good, but everything clicked together then. Well, everything is clicking together now. My lifelong preparation, various forays into nonviolent warfare, and my last 13 years of devotion there too are coming together. This campaign, Ecocide's death fast, 0 calories, the vow of silence, which I'll discuss in a moment, who I am, what I am, the capabilities that I now put on the altar to our children's future with immense joy, are the best I've ever been, and analogous to that year in the mid-90s when I skied the best I'd ever skied, and I'd been a very good skier. It all came together. It's all coming together now. 0 credit to me. No different than the greats, an Einstein, a Mozart, a Michelangelo, an E.O. Wilson. Where did your great painting come from? How did you think of that? Wilson, where did your Nobel Prize winning theory come from? Mozart, why did you do the phrase of music this way? The answer is always the same. Einstein, where did your theory come from? Answer is always the same, in different words. I don't know. It was just there. 0 credit to me, but it's all coming together. 0 credit to me, but it's all coming together. Every insight, every idea that I value, that I think is of hope, it was just there. Typically when I wake up in the morning, or when I'm walking, or when I least suspect it. Now with all of them, if they were asked, why did it come? Do you think it had anything to do, Einstein, with your devotion, your single-minded devotion? Or Michelangelo, do you think the Sistine Chapel came from your single-minded devotion? Do you think it would have happened without that? Of course not. Of course not. As one achieves 100% every waking moment devotion to a worthy cause. What's referred to as the divine comes in and takes a hand. It's clear to me it's the 80% of our nervous system that we can't control, but we can learn to tap, we can learn to listen to, we can learn to surrender to. That's been my need throughout my professional life. I ran toward emergencies that our silly little, what we understand as our mind, couldn't possibly solve. I had to learn to tap into that 80%, and I did. And in the business world, and in the business culture, worked miracles one after another. Was a catalyst for miracles one after another. I've been no catalyst for a miracle in the last 13 years. I've regained my sanity and regained my humanity in using all those skills, but it's infinitely more difficult because in the business world, I could harness our head and our flesh and the distinctly separate heart and soul toward one goal. All of which, I didn't understand it, was to serve the flesh, and in the computer industry it was to automate people's jobs and put their salaries in the pockets of rich people. I didn't know that, but I sensed something was wrong, and that's what I was doing, and that's what the high-tech industry does. It isn't necessarily their fault. It's what our fleshly spirit does with greed. Technology could be a boon to mankind, although the notion of automating the meaningful parts of our lives, sewing, knitting, feeding, growing food, is like doing away with the need to eat, doing away with the need to breathe, doing away with the need for our heart to beat or our brain to think. It might be possible, but does it serve life, or is each an amputation of a part of our life? But the problem isn't technology per se, it's technology in the hands of our fleshly spirit, and there are virtually no exceptions. So in that world where I could serve the fleshly spirit and bring online hearts and souls more than most of the people that I was able to influence ever had experienced, to their incredible joy and success and productivity, have I been able to work a shred of that in the last 13 years? In this city, there's probably no one more isolated, more alone, more dismissed, more ignored, to the point that they would ridicule me, except I'm ignored. So just known and unknown at the same time. So in any objective sense, any material sense, I've been an abject failure. And I have no illusion that that's going to change. All I know is all objective truth in every day's hundreds of articles to do with the impending ecocide. The science, the technology, the economics, the politics. We have everything we need to avert the equivalent, the wreckage equivalent of a global thermonuclear war, ecocide. We have everything we need: the money, the technology, the social science, the resources, the know-how, the sun, the wind, the hydro, the geothermal, the biomass. We have all of it today. We don't need anything new. If we don't do it, we turn the economic powerhouse of the 21st century over, the economic dominance over to China and India, because whoever dominates the energy supply dominates the world economy. It was the US in the 20th century with fossil fuels. Because of our apathy in the face of China and India's race to dominate that, our children, US children, will be second-class economic citizens, which at some level is wrong. So I know that I've made no difference. I know that there's not a snowball's chance in hell that I will make a difference. But if a bunch of someones don't try, don't pit everything they have and everything they are against the impending, unconceivable horror to which we are dooming our children without an excuse, and every one of our children and grandchildren will know that if you were more than 12 years old in 2013, you had everything you needed without breaking a sweat to give the next 1,000 children a future. You had the information. It was in the news. It was available on the website. It was a 98% consensus for the last 15 years of every climate scientist, 3,500 of them, and 80% of all scientists, you had the science available, you had the knowledge, you had the technology, you had the solar technology, you had the wind technology, which was at parity with the scam cost of fossil fuels. Scam cost? Yeah, it's a scam cost when you only pay 25% of the total cost, because the externalities are the other 75%. The Hurricane Sandys, the storm surges of Katrina, which your apathy, our apathy, is increasing rapidly now tenfold. There'll be a Katrina every 2 years, as I recall. Headlines last week. As opposed to at max every 20 years. And on and on and on. Google tracking Plan B or tracking Plan B Start Loving, and the science blog will come up. Or go Google Start Loving and look at the tabs on the top and over at the left, and you'll see how to get there. I know I've had no impact. I know I'm probably not going to do so. And I know if I had 1,000 lives and could spend them all this moment, this month, and next month, and lose them all, either to the cancer or to this death fast, I would do it in a heartbeat. And unless a bunch of us become the evidence, which doesn't exist right now, there is no human evidence that there's an emergency. Articles do not satisfy that. Speeches don't satisfy that. Talking is evidence that there's not an emergency. It is lip service. If no one says it, our nervous system automatically knows it. It's lip service. All evidence is that this is not an emergency, and until some people's lives become honest, out of heart, 100% devotion, evidence that there's an emergency, because people aren't acting like it, they're living like it, there's no hope. But no credit to me, I know how to do that. I did it in the business world. That's where the miracles come from. I would see a human emergency in terms of a company going out of business, and my nervous system couldn't not devote everything I had, everything, risk everything to save those people's jobs. No credit to me, but I don't know how not to do this. No credit to me. But unless some other people learned, unless some other people figured out, like, was it Whopper in that silly, massively important war games? Unless some people learn, and it'll be 1 in a million now in April, May of 2013, and become the evidence for the 2nd in a million. And those two become evidence for the 4 in a million. There's no hope. I'm too greedy not to do my part. There's no one on earth that has more joy than I do every waking second. Joy is what happens when the heart sees an emergency worth its life and devotes itself to it. Day 4, my energy is waning rapidly. There have been several times when I've been approaching passing out today. I've been quite hydrated, so that wouldn't seem to be it. If my previous hunger strikes are an indication, things will stabilize probably by day 7 or 8. Though with the cancer in my liver, that's a new element in the equation. I don't know how that's going to play out. As to the operating under a vow of silence, I didn't say take taking a vow of silence. I don't believe in that. How can I know if tomorrow morning I won't be able to see an opportunity to scream and say, well, this will be a rather interesting test. 10 minutes of video that I just shot on that previous take didn't happen because this little handheld camera, the memory was full. And it's 10:30 at night, and I'm usually in bed 2 hours ago. So we'll just have to see how the rest of this video log goes. I'm not displeased so far with what I think I'm sharing with you. Our crazy friends at the Canadian Embassy that I'm in front of. Some folks asleep down here on the sidewalk. That lump in the middle of the sidewalk is a really great guy. Harsh as hell. Has lived here for years on the street. Doesn't hurt anybody. Thinks the world is sick. Keeps to himself. Clock. So, back to the status report. As to the vow of silence, I don't believe in vows, and on that Gandhi and I disagree on one of the few things we disagree on. I'm operating under a vow of silence, but I haven't taken one. I'll be silent if I see that by yelling I can stop someone from being hit by a car tomorrow morning. I'll be silent if a homeless person that seems new to the city with a few mumbled words from me can get a hot meal or a blanket on a cold night. So I'm making those kinds of exceptions. The only thing that's sacred for me is loving, and that means the lives of our next 200 billion children. That's sacred to me, and doing what I can to help them. Nothing else is sacred. Everything is a strategy or a tactic for me to do that, which is not to say I don't take them seriously. But the only thing that's sacred for me is averting ecocide. Hell for my next 200 billion children. So you can know that when I see it, it's of greater humanity, greater value to humanity that I break the vow of silence, that I end the death fast. I will do that. But I feel a clearer vision, as I was describing earlier, I think. Again, it's tough having had this 15-minute break here. But I was describing earlier how I'm at the top of what I know. I'm able to forecast, I think, much more clearly than ever before on how this will play out. There have been 3 people in my life that have been or have been close to the revolution. There's only one revolution. It's universal family, universal love, unconditional family, unconditional love by whatever name or no name at all. My dad, and through my dad, I'm one of the only people, it seems, that's seen the man Jesus and the teachings of the man Jesus. It wasn't about avoiding what he did, loving everyone so much he put his body in harm's way. It was about having the extraordinary life experience he did of loving that much and running serially from emergency to emergency to put our bodies in harm's way. I saw that because that's how my dad lived. The other two people emerged in my life about 12 years ago at the end of my first hunger strike. We had barely known each other. Our sons played soccer together, and occasionally on weekend outings we would see each other. Barely knew each other. They read of my first hunger strike on the front page of the Philadelphia Inquirer, New Year's Eve of 2011. I saw this email out of the blue and I thought, oh my God, they are going to ream me big time. But I'm a person of courage, so I contacted them. No, they were just distraught over what risks there might be to me. They pulled me into their house, a middle-class family, a middle-class house, a family that works 7 days a week. Seven days a week, literally 7 days a week. Nursed me back to health. For years, I lived in their house. For years. Unconditional family is unconditional. There's nothing that dents it, and there has been nothing. None of what to society are my crazy gyrations over the last 12 years. Nothing has shaken them. Nothing has shaken them. To the point that these people that never take a vacation, they don't work on Easter. So what do? They drove down from Philadelphia the other day, yesterday probably, to spend hours with me. And you bet I broke the vow of silence. Universal family is sacred. But except for exceptions like that, and if I go to the coffee shop that has been almost family to me, these two managers, these two African-American men, have been so kind to me. If I need to charge my solar battery, I can charge my solar battery. If I need to sit there for a couple hours and charge up my laptop, taking up one of their few tables, no problem, no gripe. A few packages, support for my work I need sent, no problem. Unbelievable. It's a shabby little store. They've just been incredibly kind, unconditionally kind. Do I talk to them if I go in to charge for a couple of hours? Yes, you bet I do. But I owe it to everyone else not to. We use dialogue to protect our heart and soul, to keep things from reaching it. We're masters at that. We don't do it intentionally, it's automatic. We've been taught, we've been carefully taught by people for whom it was also automatic. Visual is the royal road to the heart. I've known that, but I haven't been to the clarity on it that I am now. I owe it to everyone, no matter how far they travel, no matter what their circumstance, not to talk. If I see it of dire importance to the next 200 billion children for me to speak, you bet I will. And obviously, here I am on a video. No, it's interpersonal dialogue where the vow of silence I operate under. I will post occasionally. I don't know how frequently. Calories? I don't expect to die on this fast, although that would be my choice. They won't let me do that here in DC. I'm not taking vitamins. I am taking electrolytes. I'm not taking vitamins. I don't expect to be taking any fat as I have in the past around the 20th or 30th day, a tablespoon of something like peanut butter, so that my body feeds off of that and not so much off my brain tissue. I don't see doing that this time. It's time for me to be on the altar of a future for our children. But they won't let me die here. At some point they'll hospitalize me by somewhere between 30 and 60 days from now. when I just go totally incapacitated. And when they realize that I will not break the vow of silence and that I will not consume calories, I expect they'll institutionalize me, and at that point I expect to give them an interesting choice. Constructively, these are my friends, they're not my enemies. They're my friends, they're our friends. They're fine people, almost all of them, the medical and the police or officer staff. But there's tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars in Robin Hood stuff I've been doing. And at that point, I'll be sure that a confession is presented to them, and so they'll have to decide between prison and a psych wing for me. No matter. These friends that came down, before they left, they came back with a bottle of water for me because I had said the drinks, and I said no calorie drinks, they're shameless. They brought me some Gatorade with 120 calories in it. I drank it after they left. When I go to this coffee shop, I don't freeload. Nothing is free. Everything that's free is a victory for entropy. Entropy fills that vacuum. Cancer fills that vacuum. Nothing's free. So I don't go in unless I have $2 for a cup of coffee. I can't drink coffee. They don't serve anything else. I can't drink coffee unless there's one packet of sugar and a dollop of half and half. Maybe that's 30 calories, and I've had probably 2 or 3 cups for day 4 here. And I see that continuing with great joy. It's so clear to me that I'm on the road. If an approach is going to awaken anyone's soul, and that's our problem. See the first video log on this death fast of 3 or 4 days ago. The whole strategy here, the whole next 1,000 generations, the next 200 billion children, depends on humanity's soul coming awake. And what I'm doing is a way. There probably aren't any better ways. There might be people better able to do it. There are people better able to do it. A handful of our children awakened, one child awakened, could be infinitely more effective than I. Look at the impact Malala's had. A handful of American children that got it, that put their body in the way unviolently. Oh, that would start an unviolent firestorm of soul awakening. So there are people that are in a much higher leverage position to do it than I am. I'm an unknown, a freak with tattoos on his face. People that should be looking at become very good at marginalizing, ridiculing, dismissing. Speaking against what I do, that was an interesting one. How the Occupy people, some of them are speaking against me. That's quite extraordinary. I don't speak about them. They speak against me. I certainly don't speak about them in any unconstructive way. And they actively discredit me as others do. That was breathtaking when I learned that a couple of weeks ago. So there are people that are in a much higher leverage position than I am. But this avatar here is what I've got. So it's what I work with. And with exceptions only in service of our children, very few and far between, I will continue to operate under the vow of silence. Make no mistake. And I will continue to operate on the death fast as far as this avatar will go. And then my spirit will continue, and any of you that know me or can know of me in the future, and my awareness will stop. I've never been more joyful. I've never been more excited. I've never been more focused. Well, that's it.